Welcome to the MOBILETrak Material Charge Out Module walkthrough, specifically for a real-time instance of Milsoft's iXp. Getting started, let's take a look at some of the settings that will be affecting our charge outs. Display default GL account. Because most utilities using MOBILETrak have a single account or transaction code for work orders, MOBILETrak can store and pre-fill the account or transaction code for your charge out. Enable division, enable department, enable activity code, and edit activity code only when required. These settings should remain turned off. They are not applicable to iXp MOBILETrak users. Show on-hand quantity. This setting determines whether or not the items on the charge out screen show their current quantities or not. Retain notes. This setting makes the notes field on the charge out persistent. If this setting is turned off, the notes field clears after every entry. By turning this on, whatever is entered into the notes field persists until the user changes it, or we leave the page completely. Warn on negative quantity. This setting provides a warning to the user whenever they are trying to charge out more quantity than what currently exists on hand in iXp. The user can click OK if they want to proceed with the charge out that will take the quantity negative, or clear to enter in a different quantity. Barcode user in description and barcode transaction in description. These settings should remain turned off. They are not applicable to iXp MOBILETrak users. Let's see how all these settings affect the material charge out when turned on or off. Display default GL account. When turned on, the user will see that the account number or transaction code has been automatically filled in by MOBILETrak. When turned off, the user will need to type in or scan in this information. The default is manually set by the MOBILETrak team. If you need to change this default, please let us know. Show on-hand quantity. Turned on, we see here that MOBILETrak is showing us the quantity pulled from the live counts for this part in iXp. When turned off, no quantity for this part will be displayed. Retain notes. Turned on, we see that our notes field content is persisting after every entry. When it is turned off, we see that the notes field is cleared after our entry. Warn on negative quantity. When turned on, we see that MOBILETrak is warning us when we try to charge out a higher quantity than the on-hand quantity in iXp. Turned off, we will not see this warning. For the sake of our demonstration, we will apply the settings as follows. We will turn off the Enable Division, Enable Department, and both activity code settings. We will turn on the Display Default GL account, Show on-hand quantity, Retain notes, and Warn on negative quantity. To navigate to the Material Charge Out module, follow these steps. Inventory. Material Charge Out. Then select the type of charge out you'd like to perform. In the Material Charge Out module, you have the ability to charge out material to either a specific work order number or a general ledger account such as overhead maintenance or material stores expense. When we have work order selected, we see fields for entering a work order number in the general ledger or transaction code. Since we have the Display Default GL account option turned on, the account number here is already filled in. You will notice that at the moment, the entry field is highlighted red, and we have the error message, work order is required, showing under the account field. That's an error message we are getting back from iXp because that GL or transaction code requires a work order number to process. The user can easily identify and select the account number or transaction code using the drop-down list. This list is manually set by the MOBILETrak team based on the information provided by your organization. For the purpose of our demonstration, I am going to continue using our default. Once I type in a good work order value, you will notice both the work order field and the account field are now highlighted in green, and the work order description is being displayed. After we have entered a valid work order number and account number or transaction code, we can begin our process of charging out material. I am wanting to charge out some conduit to work order 1638271. When I scan in or type in the part number, we see the item description and the on-hand quantity for conduit in my current location. I want to charge out a quantity of 50. Note that before I am able to submit my charge out, I have to select the bin location for this item. Now when I tap the Submit Charge Out button, these changes get sent immediately to iXp. You will notice when I click the Submit button, the work order and account information stayed. It's just the bottom section of the page that is reset. This is because MOBILETrak is expecting multiple items to be sent to this work order, so it does not make the user re-enter the work order number and account number for every item. Behind the scenes, when a charge out is submitted, MOBILETrak is checking iXp to see if there is a valid ticket number to be returned with that material. If there is, that ticket number will be returned to iXp along with the item quantity. If there is no valid ticket number, a zero ticket will be returned. Now let's move over to the general ledger. On this screen, you will notice that the work order field goes away and the account field is once again red. Because our display default GL account setting is turned on and our default account number or transaction code is 107200Y, which requires a work order number, we see that the field is underlined in red and we see the error message. I will simply delete the default and enter in a valid account number or transaction code. When I enter the valid value, it goes green again. I'm now going to charge out conduit to the general ledger. Notice that when I type in the same part number as before, our on-hand quantity is changed because of the charge out we performed earlier. MOBILETrak is integrated with the real-time counts in iXp, pulling our new on-hand quantity and displaying that on the screen. Same as charging out material to a work order, when I tap the Submit Charge Out button, these changes get sent immediately to iXp, affecting inventory numbers in real time. We are able to quickly reset our charge out screen. Next to the Submit button is the Reset Work Order button. This clears out the work order field at the top and scrolls the user to the top of the page. This is mostly for smaller screen devices, so the user does not have to drag the screen down to get to the work order and account fields when they need to change them. Process inventory transactions in your warehouse in real time at the point of activity, reducing accounting errors straight from the device in your pocket with MOBILETrak WMS. If your utility is looking to maximize efficiency and minimize errors, contact ID Solutions for information on MOBILETrak WMS.